Welcome to Straight Lines. This is where life lessons meet leadership, where business gets a front row seat, and where you will get a blueprint for success. Whether you're managing a team, building a brand, or just trying to lead yourself better, you're in the right place. Because here on Straight Lines, we believe the shortest distance between purpose and progress is truth, clarity, and action. Straight Lines brought to you by Blue Book Sports. Blue Book Sports has been the game's trusted directory since 1909, and now it's where businesses connect directly with players, parents, and coaches. Create a profile, promote your services, and join the community. If your business wants to stand out, it's time to get in the book. Download Blue Book Sports today from Apple or Google Play. Very excited today to be joined by Joe Jordano, a iconic famous coach now at IMG Academy, where he's the head of college placement for baseball at IMG, but spent 10 years as a head coach at Mercyhurst, Western Pennsylvania. About the same time I started at Allentown College. Was there 10 seasons, 283 wins, 118 losses. You're like me, like we weren't very good those days, right? The kids won the games. We screwed up the losses.
Of
And then
course.
spent 21 seasons at the University of Pittsburgh, where he's the winningest coach in Pitt baseball histories and the most wins with 588 of them, and most wins by any coach in the history of Pitt's athletics. 70 plus professional players were developed and a bunch of All Americans as well. So Coach Jordano, I really appreciate you coming on with me today. Thank you very much.
It is my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, sir. You're welcome. So let's just to get right in. I mean, as you know, you and I just saw a post from LinkedIn on you, from you as, we're here. And I think this comes to us of age. Wish younger coaches would learn it earlier. That really what we're here for is to make an impact on others. And in our cases, when we coach, it's young adults. But we don't really learn that until we get out of our own way. And that's usually could be a decade or two or more later. So we're here the show's about that, make an impact, life lessons, some leadership kinds of things. So, and what's your leadership philosophy over the years? Has it changed since your early days at Mercyhurst to, your role at IMG or through Pittsburgh? I think mine has over the years, Joe, just again, with wisdom and realizing what priorities, why we're here. Baseball becomes the vehicle for success and making an impact. How do you feel, Joe?
From my perspective, I was very young when I became a head coach. I was 23 years old. And that came with a lot of responsibility, obviously. And it also came at a time where I had very little experience as a leader, so to speak. I felt like during my playing days, I was one of those guys that wanted to instill upon my teammates how important it was to be a team. And I think that may have pushed me in the direction of getting off to a fairly good start early in my career. But certainly the challenge that I had was I was 23 and a few of my players were 21, 22 years old. So, and I was still playing competitive baseball with them at the time that I was coaching them. But I made it very clear that there's one boss and there's a very clear line between friend and coach. So in terms of how my leadership evolved, I think, Tim, it was more of my delivery rather than the core principles of what I believed in. My father always told me, number one, outside of God and family, the golden rules: be the best you can be, do the right thing, and treat others the way you want to be treated. And I think early on, if I can use a baseball analogy, which is appropriate, I was more of a Billy Martin early in my career? Exactly. Because that's what we thought a
Yeah,
coach
it
did.
was okay. Right.
And I don't think I ever got into what I would say abuse, but I was very hard, very strict, and very direct. And towards the end of my career, probably about maybe 15, 18 years in, I became more of a Joe Torre, which was more calm, more understanding, not necessarily with umpires. I think I maintained that Billy Martin mentality through my entire career. And there's probably several umpires that can absolutely attest to that.
Yeah, I'm
So,
sure.
but I will tell you this, I had a defining moment in my career. And this was, I believe, the last year that I was at Mercyhurst. And we were playing Gannon University down at the old Jerry Ut Park, which is the home of the Erie Seawolves.
Right.
And that was an arch rival. We were the Catholic University on the hill. They were the Catholic University down the road. And we were in the GLIAC, and we had won the conference championship in our first year, which was the previous year. And we were battling for a second straight championship. It was later in the year. And I had a young man behind the plate, and I'm not going to mention names, but he knows this, and it was impactful. So we got a runner on third base, a tie ball game, and my number one's on the mound throwing at Jim, and they're the home team, and he throws a fastball on the outer black, and my catcher let it go to the backside. Game over. And we didn't lose to them at this point in my career and the program's history.
Right.
So I was irate, and I tore into him after the game and made it very clear that that'll never happen again. So we're having a little bit of a lunch, and I go back into the dugout to do my lineups. And that young man, the catcher, is in the dugout alone with his head down. And I look at him, and I said something to the effect of, "I still can't believe that happened." And he looked up at me and he said, "Coach, do you think I tried to do that?"
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah.
So we go out before the second game, and I ate crow. I apologized to him. I apologized to my team. And I said, I was wrong. This guy has been solid for us, and it was a grave mistake on my part. And we went on to annihilate our opponent the second game and ended up winning our second straight conference championship. But it was that moment in my coaching career where I realized how impactful my words were.
That's a great story, and a great, not only a coaching lesson, a life lesson, obviously. And again, I'm hoping the coaches and the baseball guys that listen, I've had the same experiences, probably too many to share, especially early on. And, the game's a vehicle for teaching those kids and making
Absolutely.
them better fathers and employees and husbands and whatever else they choose to do. And that's a seminal moment. There's no doubt about it. A couple funny things. You mentioned the umpires, and I certainly had my share early on. Not so much later. Maybe it was, I don't know. Maybe I was too tired. I don't know. But two things I always told them. You get to know them all, as you do too.
Sure.
They would come in a dugout hey, shake your hands. We'll be down in 15 minutes before or whatever. And I would always say to them, and they would be smiling coming in the dugout, couldn't they get anybody else today? You were the only, and they crack up. So to this day, that still goes. And one of my, I think of ways to avoid getting chucked, I'd go out in the field and I would say, isn't it amazing in the history of the game, an umpire's never been wrong. Mind you, in the history of the game, an umpire's never been wrong. Well, coach, I get them right all the time. No, well, you don't, because I'm out here. That's why I'm here. I don't miss them. So usually shuts them down. They really, what do you say to that, right? You mentioned some of these golden rules. I thought was very cool, and again associated with the LinkedIn post today. Lou Holtz, who we just lost recently, and he had amazing anecdotes and golden rules. You had a picture with him. Just briefly tell us about that relationship.
Well, it was there was a couple of connections there. One of my dear friends, Brian Lohr, who I went to school with, was the director of admissions for MBA at Notre Dame. And he also became, and he still works for the Congregation of the Holy Cross. He just a wonderful friend. And he also became the acting admissions director for Notre Dame. And I always, growing up as an Italian Catholic, Notre Dame was always at the top of the list. And anybody that had a vowel on the end of the name, as a family, we rooted for those guys.
Sure.
So, but that particular picture, my friend Steve Napolitano from out in Long Island invited me to the Joe Namath Celebrity Golf Tournament, and it was held at Bethpage, and it was impressive. And we actually played with Joe Namath and won the tournament.
Nice.
And that was the banquet following, and I went up and introduced myself, and he remembered a couple of the relationships, had a very nice conversation, took the picture, and I also met his son Skip when he was the football coach at East Carolina.
Yeah.
As you know, Billy Godwin was the head coach down there, and we were down at a tournament, and we all went out to dinner together. So
that's awesome.
So there was some great talks there, and as I said in the post, our job is to have positive impact, and we hope that the majority of them are positive.
Yeah.
And you see some of these negative posts, and you just say, listen, overall, when you look at Lou Holtz is a generational epic figure. They don't come around anymore. And he's a guy that I admired, and he talked about those golden rules as well. And that always resonated with me. And it was sad that we lost him.
Yeah. What an impact he made. I mean, glorious 89 years he spent on this earth, impacting others. He was tremendous. Obviously a great football coach, but even if people out there listening have a chance to, look up some of the things that he said, you're going to be better for it. Let's talk a little about IMG. For those who don't know, it's a world famous academy in Bradenton, Florida. Just touch on some of the things that are important at IMG and to attract, student athletes, basically.
Obviously, it's a sports academy, the leader on the globe. We have athletes from all over the world. Our sports are geared towards full development, both on and off the field, leadership, mental training, nutrition, obviously strength and conditioning, speed. And it is a very regimented, day-to-day approach to develop and maximize the level of skill that they can accomplish prior to going on to the next chapter in their life. And our facilities are arguably better than some Division I facilities. It's a beautiful campus, a lot of really high quality coaches in each segment of that APD that I just spoke about. And the development, being a Northern coach my entire life, I was on the field coaching for the first 4 years that I was at the academy. I had one of our national teams, and I had several Northern kids come down, and you could see how quickly they were progressing due to the fact that it's every day and it's regimented and it's focused and there's accountability. It's not a choice. It is a program that you buy into, and you carry that through every step of the way. And quite frankly, Tim, if you don't get better here, you're trying not to. Yeah. And it's very satisfying. And I transitioned into this college placement role due to the fact that I felt like I could help more kids trying to find the path to the next step that was appropriate for them. And with my Rolodex, so to speak, and those type of connections that I've built and friendships and relationships throughout my career are very advantageous in this position. Now, don't get me wrong. I can't pick up the phone and call Tim Corbin and say, hey, Corbin, I need you to take this kid. Right. That's not happening. Right. But you can get through most of the time to the decision makers, and you can get an honest assessment. And that's all that we're looking for. And it's a comprehensive program that we've assembled throughout the academy, but in particular baseball, that has been very effective for us.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there a few times, and the facilities are unreal. It's really unreal. I'm like, okay, I could do this. This is pretty cool. Absolutely. And do you still have the vision room, the vision training room? Used to have that. I had that in the one area. I thought that was pretty special and very underrated. I think that's a big deal.
The whole campus is going through a transition. As you know, recently we added softball. Behind me, when you come through the front gates, that used to be the throw field for track, is now being converted into a swimming and diving facility. And they just hired one of my colleagues at Pitt, John Hargis, to lead the program. Yeah. And we have wrestling and men's volleyball or boys volleyball that we just started. So we're building a brand new building for softball, track and field, and lacrosse. And this building that we're in currently, the field house, is going to be renovated and expanded to accommodate football and baseball. So
how many kids attend IMG, Joe? How many total in all sports?
I believe it's about 1,600.
Wow.
Across all sports, and that's expanding, obviously. And it's an exciting time to be here.
That's impressive. Like some small Division I's, and I know DeSales University is about 1,800 total. That's very cool. Visiting here with Joe Jordano from the IMG Academy. If you're enjoying straight lines in the conversation we have, I would love to bring that same energy to your organization. I speak to teams, conferences, schools, and groups about leadership, resilience, and living a life that will cast a large shadow. If you're looking for someone who connects, encourages, and inspires with real-life stories that matter, I'm available for your keynote and special events. Please reach out to me at coachtimneiman.com. I would be honored to serve your group. And again, with Joe Jordano, I'm really thankful for him to come on. Let's talk about some players and have they evolved over the years from your Mercyhurst days? Everybody says kids change. I think they have a little. I'm not so sure. I've always said they're products of their environment. So the parents have changed, I think, over the years. What have you seen, from a talent level, from a mindset, habits, all those kinds of things?
I think we all would agree that athletes at the professional level are bigger, stronger, faster. That has evolved since I've been in the business. I believe that the one challenge we have specifically for baseball is that we went from kind of a grinded mentality where you went out onto the field every day. You took a tremendous amount of ground balls, a lot of swings. There were no measurement tools to use to evaluate that. So it was all internal. So when you square up with the baseball, you knew you hit that ball hard. You made a good play. You felt the sequence going through as an infielder or an outfielder or a pitcher. You felt those things. Whereas now we have seen so much that has focused on metrics and numbers that we know as coaches, especially in baseball, progress is incremental. In baseball, you don't make big jumps fast. So it's the process of executing what you're good at and improving what your weaknesses are, repeating that every day and developing those repeatable actions. Then when you physically start to make your jumps, and that happens differently with every kid, you put yourself into a position where if you have that baseline of solid, repeatable fundamentals, repeatable actions, when you start making those physical jumps, you'll see a much bigger impact than you will if you're just chasing numbers and trying to do things that physically you're not capable of doing at that point in your development. I always look at metrics, and I've wrote a couple articles about it. Metrics need to be a measurement tool. It's not a goal. The metrics and those numbers are a product of your process. And it's good to measure and understand that, because you and I both know, Tim, we have athletes that blow the metrics charts off the planet. Doesn't make him a good baseball player.
That's for sure. That's for sure. I talk about that for the last 10, 15 years or more. There's a lot of athletes playing baseball, but there's not a lot of baseball players, and I think, and I've also said for a long time, the organizations, colleges, professional baseball, especially, that can blend those metrics and blend all the analytics with some baseball stuff, with some old school, if you want to call it that. But, I kind of call it now school. It's what it is right now. They can blend all those things. Man, you're going to sustain yourself for quite a long time. I think that's important. Those are great things. Yep.
I'm gonna add on to your old school, now school. Wrote an article on this too. Old school is old school because it withstood the test of time.
Absolutely.
So when you look at new school, if it is applicable and it works, that's going to be the new old school. And it just blends together, right?
It blends.
So it's just new theories a new way of looking at things. And listen, metrics and analytics is a very important part of the game. But the core is when that umpire says play ball, what's the kid doing between the lines?
Yep.
You can have all the
Human
metrics
beings.
in the world, right?
Yep. Yeah,
So
they're
from
human
my
beings.
perspective, it's just when you have a nice balance of both, that's the player that stands out.
100%. Our friend Chris Dennert, who is the founder of Dugout Mug, said success is sequential, not simultaneous. And I
Yeah,
thought,
it's
you
very
know
well
what,
said.
that's pretty profound right there.
Yes,
Pretty
it is.
profound. Back in the day, and you'll know this thing too, OFP, which is called Overall Future Potential. So I spent some time with the Pirates and Brewers, Bird Dog and that kind of stuff. But I learned a lot in several years, and projecting was a big deal. And there's no doubt about it. I'm guessing at your level and the kinds of players that you're getting, I think that's probably still pretty important with you. All right, where's this guy going to project into, a college player in his first year, 2, 3 years, or whatever? And is he ready for pro ball down the road? I think scouting is still pretty cool. And I think back in our days, it was neat to go run a camp and sniff out guys that nobody knew about. But that's almost impossible these days. Not totally impossible, but somewhat. And I thought that was the fun of it all, to figure out, all right, where's this guy going to end up in the next couple of years? And I think from my own perspective, it helped me at my level, because I get that fringe Division I kid that would fall through the cracks because somebody looked at him and saw, what you saw is what you get. What you see is what you get. Well, I didn't see that. What I saw was what I'm going to get down the road, and ended up with about 15 pro players, at our school. It's pretty good. So,
Very good.
how do you feel about this? I'm sure it's still a factor, right, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that from my perspective, when I watch a game, I'm looking for playability. I'm looking for how he's playing the game. And then from that, I start breaking down the physicality of it. And are things repeatable? If there's a pitcher, for instance, that I really like his kinematic sequence, and he's really pounding the zone, but you throw 20 pounds on him, he's going to be potentially a different guy. And the guy that has really good hands, maybe he's a gap-to-gap guy, but he's really balanced and controlled, has a great approach at the plate, and he's a gap-to-gap guy, but he's got some size. Again, you have to know what your system is and what it can do for a player in terms of skill development when you bring them in to that environment. And then you could fairly accurately, because there's always going to be misses, project where that kid could be. One of the things when I was at the University of Pittsburgh, and as you mentioned, we had a huge number of players that signed professionally. Only a handful of those, Tim, were drafted guys coming into the program. So these are guys that we developed.
Yep.
And obviously, when we joined the ACC, we certainly didn't and were not securing the players that Virginia and Clemson and North Carolina, we weren't getting that polished kid. We had to take a look at it and say, he's got a couple of tools. If we work with them and get them in, baptism by fire, that was our recruiting pitch. You come here, you're going to play as a freshman. And that worked. And you knew you had going to have some bumps in the road with freshmen on the field. And if you look at the kind of the graph of my career, there was a lot of escalation and there'd be a little drop off, escalation and then drop off. And that's simply because we didn't have, number one, the scholarship resources. We had a roster limitation. my entire career at Pitt of 32 players.
Mm.
And that was day one of school.
Mm.
That wasn't prior to the season. That was day one of school. So there were a lot of challenges that a lot of people maybe don't realize or didn't realize. But, and Trees Field, possibly one of the worst facilities in college baseball. But we didn't care. It was, this is what we have.
Yep.
This is who we are. And this is what we do.
Yep.
And that was our mentality. And I've had 10 big leaguers.
Yeah.
My first one was David Lee from Pittsburgh, who was at Mercyhurst with me.
Mm.
So
that's very cool. Very cool. So one of my favorite topics while we're along this, and you have with 32 kids, you had to get it right for the most part, but kids tend to fool you. So you've made all your evaluations physically, skills wise, talent wise, tools wise, all that stuff. And you'll know the name Joe Consoli, who I hung out for several years with the Pirates.
Yes.
Last name's ending a vowel too. Unbelievable guy. And I'll never forget, and I've said this on podcasts before, Timmy, after all the evaluation is done, find out what kind of a person he is. Or I can do it in my Italian, boy, Timmy, after all the evaluation is done, find out what kind of a person. And he, you know what, Joe, I never forgot that. Now kids could fool you a little bit, but by going to games and seeing how they interact with mom and dad, that sort of thing, kind of sometimes is a tell with teammates, coaches, umpires. So it's called makeup, obviously. How important is that? I'm sure it still is today. And I think we see it visibly watching ball games, college, pro games, high school games, visibly. So how important is it to you still in an IMG Academy?
Well, for me, in my position currently, when I address each group prior to the season, I say, listen, I know some people. I'm going to help you in this process, but I can guarantee you that if you're not being a high character kid, both on and off the field, don't expect me to put my name on you.
Exactly.
Because I've built my reputation over close to 40 years in this business, and I am not going to tarnish it, regardless of your talent level, with a bad seed. And just philosophically, I'll tell you this, Tim. When I used to go and watch kids play, the only person that would know that I was coming is the athletic department secretary to confirm the game was on. And I would go and make sure that I was there before anybody was on the field.
Sounds familiar.
I never wore anything identifying me as Pitt, and I watched. And I can tell you, so many times, I left that field recruiting a different player than the one I was there to see, just by how he approached stretching, throwing, batting practice, shagging balls, how he handled himself at the plate, how he handled himself on the mound if he was a pitcher. The whole scope was a review session to see how that kid acted and played when he thought nobody was watching.
Absolutely. That's a Consoliism, Joe. He would do the same thing. I went to a game with him one time. He also said, look, if you like somebody, bear down on him. Bear down on him.
Absolutely.
So we get there before the game, before the bus arrives, and the bus arrives, and the kid gets off the bus, hat on backwards, and Joe called it a Mr. T starter set around his neck.
Yeah.
And we left. He goes, just because, he's just not a prospect for the Pittsburgh Pirates. He might be for somebody else, which I always thought was really cool that he said that. And that's exactly right. I'd rather have those kinds of people. And I think people in business and organizations would rather have those kinds of folks than, people like, all right, this guy's got all the ability in the world, but where am I going with them? And can I trust them on top of it? And those kids typically work harder as well. I think that's great advice for coaches out there that are recruiting. And, I'm a little harder to hide. I'm 6'4", so a little hard, but I would do the same thing. I would try to lay low, and maybe if I really like things are going well, I kind of sniff out the parents, want to watch what they do too. And then you go from there. But, it's, how about this part of the game too? And in life in general, mental toughness that seems to not occur so much anymore. I think kids are quick to give up and quit, as opposed to, fighting through it. You mentioned the word grind before. Talk to my sons, Nolan and Doc, about, we don't like the word grind. If it's a grind, don't do it. Go do something else, but somebody that wants to, work through any issues and failures. A game, as you know, is built on failure. What's the mental toughness like these days, at the academy and in general?
Well, we have a whole APD segment that's dedicated to leadership and the mental game. So it is certainly a part of the curriculum and the package that we offer here at the Academy. My theory on it is, as you said, the mentality of just giving up quickly, because you think about it, and I've used this analogy before. When we got an assignment in college, we had to go to the library. We had to look through the Dewey Decimal System.
Card catalog.
That's right. To find out where the book is. Mm-hmm. You had to go to a spot to find the book.
Hope it was there, right?
Yeah. Then you had to go through it and gain the knowledge and information that you needed to put a paper together. Whereas today, you have AI writing the paper for you.
Yeah.
And so many kids are so involved with video games, etc. And you think about that process. We had Pong, things like that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Right?
No idea.
But nowadays, and I've seen my son go through this when he was younger. As soon as he got, eaten or blown up, hit reset.
Start over.
In baseball, there's no reset. So you have to understand, you got to go through the whole game and learn how to play that game before you're going to be successful at it. If you're using cheat codes and this is the way you get to the next level, that defeats the purpose of experience, because you and I can't teach experience. You have to live it. And it's going to be either positive or negative, and both are invaluable to growing as a person. They're teaching moments. And unfortunately, nowadays, everything is so instant that we're losing that understanding of failure and how to pick yourself back up and become better because of it.
Yeah. And they don't deal with failure. Now you touched on a little bit. We'll pick it up on the other side here, but they don't know how. I mean, the game's, you're 3 for 10, man. You're doing really good,
Very good.
But let's figure out, how can I keep getting better and learn? And baseball's hard. We don't let everybody play. Not everybody can play, so visiting here with Joe Jordano, famous coach, Mercyhurst, University of Pittsburgh, and now at IMG Academy. One thing he and I both don't like are team killers. In every workplace and every team, there are unseen forces that can derail success. In my book, Team Killers, I uncover the behaviors, attitudes, and habits that destroy chemistry and show you how to build a winning culture instead. If you're a leader, coach, or teammate who wants success, this book is your playbook. Get your copy of Team Killers today and protect your team from the inside out. Available on Amazon. Let's just finish up on the failure part, Coach. And again, I've seen it more and more. I try to tell kids, even little kids at camp and clinics, always finish up like, is throwing your bat after you strike out a good thing? Starts at that level, right? Is throwing your helmet a bad thing? Is throwing your glove over the bench after the inning because you made an area a good thing? I mean, you've got to be able to handle it, short memory, and get back on a horse and play. Just close that thought up on failure, Joe.
I am going to refer to a man that I had the pleasure of working with at the University of Pittsburgh, Dr. Kevin Elko, who is a world-class sports psychologist
Right.
and just a tremendous guy. And a lot of the things that I learned from him, I applied every day and still do. And one of the things he said to me, came up with this process of when you have something that happens to you that you don't feel good about, it's natural for you to be upset with yourself, right? We all are competitors and we all want the best every opportunity that we have. But he said, just for instance, in a baseball game, you take a called third strike with runners on second and third, less than 2 outs. You're not happy about it. Nobody's happy about it. You go back to the dugout. He said, grab a cup, put some water in it, think about it. You can be upset, aggravated, mean, whatever you want to do, whatever thoughts are going. When you drink that water, crush the cup and throw it away. And that's the end of it. So you allow yourself to naturally be upset, but you're physically doing something that is acknowledging that personally, and then you're throwing it away to get you back on the horse, as you mentioned. I thought it was fantastic, and it's just a visual thing.
Very easy.
It's just how do I deal with that failure?
Yeah. I think you've probably been this way, as was I. I think it also applies to us in the coaching world. And we're younger and we're all full of, everything. And how many times after a game we took the club out in the outfield and said, take a knee, and here we go. And
Absolutely.
say something spur of the moment that the next day you regret, and you've got to own it and apologize for it, whatever. And I always took a while for me, but maybe a couple decades to say, look, let's just give it 24 hours, because inevitably you'll say something you'll regret. And I think that kind of holds true there. We're never going to get the kids to like the game as much as we do, ever. They just won't. But they're out there playing and stuff, and it means something to them. And we just don't want to destroy them in a moment of anger and frustration, which we've all done. And it's natural to do that. And I think it's important to vent it somehow, some way, but it just can't be in that fashion, I think. Your thoughts on that part of it from a coaching standpoint?
Sure. Well, I think that, listen, if you're a coach that is constantly negative and constantly pounding your guys, there's going to be a point where they just stop listening.
Yep.
And, I think it's the same thing as a parent. If it's everything's negative, that can be adverse as well. And certainly as a leader, if you're running a business and everything coming down from the top is what's wrong rather than, hey, this is what we're doing well, it gets old. And I think that communication piece is critically important in anything that you do, that you're consistent, that you acknowledge the highs and you address the lows in a way of, listen, how can we collectively fix this? So they feel like they're a part of the process.
Right.
There are times, Coach, this, where you got to make a demand and send a message that what just happened is unacceptable. It hasn't met the minimum expectation that we have as an organization or a group. And I think if you have that consistency in your communication, your team knows that you're on their side and they're a part of the process, that will resonate in a big way.
Well, it certainly does. I think, it's important for kids to see a coach with a steady hand, especially during a game, and you can't panic because that old adage, the players are going to reflect the coach, and pretty true most of the time. And it used to be like a 10-to-1 ratio rule, Joe. For every one time you got after them, they needed, I call them verbal bouquets. They need
Yeah.
10 verbal bouquets. The ratio might be 50-to-1 by now. Who knows? It seems to be a little bit more of that. But if the ratio is the other way, boy, you're exactly right. You tune them out, and that's not helping anybody. And you essentially are going to go backwards as a coach on a ball club, or the team you're coaching. So it's all about culture and this chemistry thing. Hey, my club's got good chemistry. They have good chemistry. The USA hockey team, gold medal, they had good chemistry. Yeah, we know it when we see it. I've always had a hard time figuring out how to create it and coach it. I don't know how to put that together. Yeah, we all have our cultures and our non-negotiables. And it got to the point with me, I'm like, my only rule was encompassing a lot of things was don't embarrass the team, and that meant a whole bunch of people. And it worked, thank goodness, but it didn't block me in per se. Your thoughts I don't know how to mix the ingredients together and come up with, hey, we got chemistry. We have it today. It could be a moment that happened to the team on or off the field, which I've witnessed. And today is one of those sad days, but those are things that could happen, but I just think it kind of happens organically. Thoughts on that, Coach?
I think my thought in that aspect is this: only one team in college baseball at each level get the dog pile at the end of the year, right? So to me, defining success is relative. There are programs that are hardwired to go to Omaha. And then there's a lot of other programs that have internal obstacles that they don't control, that if they go 500, that is a very successful season for them. And I think, again, it is a clear mission, a strategic approach to your coaches, empowering the people that work for you, and the consistency of your delivery as a coach or a leader. And those are the things that are going to build a good vibe, a good environment, and have a positive impact on your players. And if they know that I'm on those front lines with you, I think that is a great benefit and adds to that chemistry. So I look at the Olympics we just experienced. If you're at the Olympics, you're a success. You're one of the best in the world at what you do. But if they don't win a gold medal, silver, or get to the platform, you're a failure? That doesn't make sense to me. So, again, it's relative. It's how you build, how you treat, how you focus, and what your goals and expectations are, and you're consistent with that from start to finish. That, to me, is great chemistry.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think along with that chemistry, culture, it permeates on to parents too, right? And I think youth baseball climate it's not going anywhere. It's $1 billion industry, and it's pretty crazy. And I think a lot of people do it very well, a lot do not. And I think there's a creation of delusion, among parents and coaches and guys that are in the game and whatever, um, and created this unrealistic expectations, I think, for overall. How do you handle that, with the folks at IMG? I'm sure they come in with high hopes and great expectations, but sometimes they need to be told the truth, right? Like, look, your kid's a really good player, going to make an impact on society. I think one of the keys here is to find a right fit for him that he can experience, a great time on and off the field, whatever school he selects. That's the most important thing, in my estimation. Is how do you do that at IMG with the folks that you're getting really elite type players? How do you handle the expectations?
Well, as you know, we have three what we consider national teams. Our Ascender team has won the Max Preps National Championship last year, 2023, and I think 2020. That team, every one of the kids is already signed a Division I commitment. The challenge that we have is, and we talked about it earlier, is what is the projectability, where they're at today, and what they need to do to get to this level, which is what every kid here wants to do. They are in a position where every kid wants to play Division I baseball. That's great. And I'm not going to be the one to say, no, you can't. What I do and the approach that I take is, all right, listen, if you want to be a doctor and you fail biology, you better find a different path. If you're in a position where you want to play in a Power Four conference, here are the expectations. Here are the numbers. That's the one thing that, from a metrics perspective, again, it's a measurement tool. This is what those coaches are expecting from their recruits. These are the guys that they're looking at. And quite frankly, if you have those measurables and you have that talent, you don't need anybody here or anywhere. They're going to find you.
That's correct.
So the challenge is identifying the path of where they're at today and where they need to be in order to attract interest from the higher level schools. And the challenge certainly is with the transfer portal and the massive amount of players that are in it every year. The recruiting cycle comes to a complete halt, especially during the senior year now, because they're in their season, they're assessing their teams. They don't know what's going to happen at the end of the year, academically, athletically, personally, where there may be some movement. But the first pot that they're going to go to is the transfer portal. And everything starts to trickle down. So you have and Tim, the draft, it went from 40 to 20 rounds. So you're looking at the Power Four is acting almost like AA baseball.
Oh, yeah.
So the cross checkers and the GMs, they go to a series, Alabama versus Vanderbilt, and they can see a whole lot right there in one weekend. Whereas before, when you had so many rounds to the draft, you had a lot more players that were on that fringe that would jump at the opportunity to play professionally. They're going back to get NIL money. So this cycle of recruiting has been completely tipped upside down. Yeah. So there's less opportunities, not more. And with the roster reductions, and what I try and inform our kids here is, listen, here's where you're at. This is where you want to go. you have the ability and the resources to do that at IMG Academy. Take advantage of it. And let's see where you're at 6 months from now, 9 months from now, going into the summer following your junior year, which you'll get a lot of exposure. But it's very clear that what I try and do is inform them and educate not only them, but their families about the challenges that they're facing, and not just them. It's across the country on the challenges of trying to secure a guaranteed spot, especially at the Division I level. And that's why we encourage Division II, Division III, junior colleges, NAI. There's a lot of really competitive programs. And who knows? You go there, your first year, you're part of a group of freshmen that feel great, and you like the school, you like the environment, the facilities are good. You may stay there.
Yeah.
You may have a great 4-year experience.
Yeah.
But that's the pushback, is their mentality is Division I, Division I, Division I. And that is ultra competitive, as you know.
I think it's important that parents learn those metrics, those measurements. I don't know that, we collectively do enough to educate them on that. This is what it takes, to play. I don't think it's published enough or, put out there publicly at all, as what it takes to play at a Power Four. And I think the number still is 7% of high school kids play in college. I mean, that's,
right.
That is a small number. So I think the more that we can educate parents, now sometimes they don't want to listen. They're living their lives through their kids, which is not a good thing. Let them develop to do what they want to do. But I think we can help ourselves collectively, coaches out there, to get them that information. Last questions for you. This goes so fast. It's amazing. You and I could carve up a couple of topics here and spend all day.
No doubt.
But I ask everybody, Joe, what does straight lines mean to you? It's been quite the concept. I've gotten a lot of great answers, over that. It's different for everybody. There's no right answer, but I know we all have our opinions. And so what does it mean to you, Coach?
For me, I think the transparency, the honesty, the directness of communication. And I've always said this to a lot of my guys here. If there's somebody watching you from the time you get up to the time you go to sleep at night, you can fool your teammates, you can fool your coaches, your parents, your friends, but the one person you can't fool is yourself. So it's at Pitt, I put a little mirror into the side of every locker. And all I ask from my team is, when you're getting ready or undressing, just look in the locker, look to your right. And if you can honestly look into your heart and say, I gave everything I had today to not only be the best I can be, but help my team be the best it can be. That's all I can ask. And
fantastic.
I think that's a very straight line. Without
certainly
question.
Is. That's fantastic. I think my next book's going to be called Straight Lines, and get all these guys, everybody's opinions. I've been pretty crazy, actually. So enjoying it very much. Thank you for joining me on Straight Lines, where leadership lessons meet the game of life. If you enjoyed today's show, share it with your friends and colleagues. Subscribe and connect with me on social media for more insights. And if you want to dive deeper, check out my 2 books, What is Your Legacy and Team Killers. Please visit CoachTimNeiman.com and check out our YouTube channel at the Neiman Legacy Network. Until next time, lead with clarity, play with purpose, and keep those lines straight. Coach Joe Jordano of IMG Academy, it's truly an honor and a pleasure to be with you today. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I really appreciate it. And as Clint Hurdle says, I thank you from the middle of my heart.
Thank you very much, Joe.
All right.